Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Let me open this the way I see it. You can teach someone how to use software. You can teach someone the features of a product. You can even teach someone a script. But you can't fake presence. You can't fake emotional control. You can't fake curiosity. And you certainly cannot fake the ability to make another human being feel understood. And I've watched this play out over and over again. Two professionals, same credentials, same training, same opportunity. One walks away with the business or the promotion, and the other walks away wondering what happened. In business, it's never really price, it's not product, but it's soft skills. And here's the thing, we call them soft, but they're anything but soft. They're disciplined under pressure. They're listening when your ego says, I want to talk. They're staying composed when someone else challenges you. They're reading the room when the room hasn't even said a word. In high-stake environments like medical device sales, you don't survive on charm. You survive on trust, and that's just not medical device sales. It's a lot of industries. And trust is built in the spaces between words, in tone, in timing, in awareness. Today, we're going to talk about the invisible advantage, the skill set that separates the average from the elite, because in a crowded world, knowledge might get you in the room, but it's really soft skills that determine whether you stay there. Today, my guest is Jason Zagadlo. Jason has been on before, and after spending nearly 2 decades in the highly competitive world of medical device sales, he learned firsthand that success is rarely just about product knowledge or technical expertise. It's about communication. It's about emotional intelligence and the ability to create memorable experiences for people. Today, through his company, Build Your Own Brand, he helps professionals and organizations stand out by being creative, different, and intentional in how they connect with others. Jason, welcome back.
Frank, good to be back. Thank you for having me.
Well, you heard the monologue there, the opening. Technical knowledge it's not enough. I mean, I can my own experience. I was a tax consultant. We all had the same tax code, and there were people who rose who weren't as knowledgeable as other people were, and there were people who just knew the tax code backwards and forwards, and they struggled. Now, you spent nearly 20 years in medical device sales, pharmaceutical sales. And that's a competitive environment. It's more than just product knowledge, right? Looking back,
so.
What separated the top performers from everyone else?
Yeah, first of all, your intro was spot on. A lot of really amazing nuggets to take away with some of the things that you had described. It's a good question because you're right. I mean, people interview. I mean, these are high level sales jobs, and when you kind of get to that level and you're looking at two different candidates, who are the candidates that excel, that thrive? And there's a lot of people, in my opinion, that are out there. They just know how to fake it really well to get through, let's say the interview. But when, in my case, again, as you mentioned, I mean, that's my background, medical device sales. When you're in the operating room and, a physician's putting in a stent into someone's vessel in their heart and things don't go like they're supposed to, who are the people that know how to navigate that and that know how to, use some critical thinking skills and some problem solving skills. And I think it's, as you mentioned, those soft skills that really lack. And I think really in 2026, you've seen some of that drop off. You've seen some emotional intelligence just not even be demonstrated in certain situations. People really not knowing how to adapt to a difficult situation. And it's mind-boggling to me. And so, I think it's those folks that know how to do some of those types of things when things get tough. Those are the people that really stand out, in my opinion.
What do people misunderstand about soft skills. We hear the term soft skills, and um, I think different things come to different people's minds. We say they matter. I guess let's, you know, what do you see as those soft skills, and um, I guess what gets misunderstood about them?
Yeah, I wish they weren't tagged soft skills because as you said in the intro, I mean, they're extremely important. They're essential. I think that, yeah, for whatever reason, they get dumbed down. But the reality is there are so many people that just don't have them. I think some people just kind of, I think maybe label them or put them in the bucket of common sense. But we've all heard the phrase common sense isn't so common. I think it's very similar with these types of skills, and it's fascinating to see, you know, how people just don't get it. Now, I can think of an example when, you know, being with a surgeon and, he's kind of pressed for time and, those sales reps that still want to keep talking to them when you can clearly tell by their body language and some of their mannerisms that they don't really want to talk about something right now because their mind is elsewhere. And the folks that just continuously keep trying to engage in that conversation, and it's like, dude, don't you see that now is not the right time? The guy's at the sink washing his hands getting ready to go in to do a high level procedure, and you're trying to sell your product. I mean, that's not appropriate. And there are people that just don't get it, and they lack the skills. And look, I mean, here's the deal. These companies, these large companies, small companies, doesn't matter. They're not spending any time, at least the training that I received, it was never around these types of skills, the adaptability and resilience, or the emotional intelligence, or problem solving, or really active listening. There's so many salespeople. Again, I'll pick on the sales folks, but they're so geared towards data dumping and vomiting all their information onto someone that they really don't listen. And the listening is really, in my opinion, what I think builds trust. So the skills are sadly underutilized. They're undertaught, and I think it really is a problem.
Well, I mean, as I alluded to, it's an invisible advantage, right? Um, it, I mean, there's left brain and there's right brain. Left brain is your math, your sciences, things like that. And I always look at it like 2 + 2 will always equal 4. It just always will, right? You mix two chemicals together, all things being equal, you're going to get the same reaction, right? You put water in, below freezing, it's gonna turn to ice. But when we're dealing with people, no two interactions are the same. You and I have talked, I don't know, a dozen times over since we
Sure.
met. And the interactions have never been the same. There have been times where you've been struggling or I've been struggling, and times where it's a good laugh and times where it's serious, and it's never the same. And I think that's where soft skills really, I don't know. It's not that I would say it gets a bad rap, but it becomes misunderstood because yeah, it is a skill, but the skill is really the ability to, as you indicated, read the room and
That's right.
you know, know when to zig or know when to zag.
Yeah, well said.
Um, Now, in medical device sales, as you indicated, there are some high pressure moments, and I mean, I think anytime you're cutting into somebody, and that's generally medical device. I mean, they're it's inside the body. What does emotional intelligence look like? That's under stress in those situations.
Well, first of all, I always say measure twice, cut once, right?
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, this is high level stuff. Um, but yeah, I mean, the emotional intelligence. Look, it's reading the room. I mean, it's again what I would always get very frustrated at there's a patient on the table. Like, I always tried to lead with patient first. That's why we're there. I was there to support physicians. For those folks that don't know, I mean, I get a lot of questions around that over the years, like, why the hell are you in the room? And it was ultimately not because I'm any smarter than any physician. That is ultimately not true. It was to make sure, however, my device was used correctly so that we could get the best patient outcome. And what I would witness sometimes, because sometimes I would be in the room with other reps, as you can imagine, there's sometimes multiple devices that are used in a complex case, and maybe mine's used for this segment of the procedure, and so also represents a different product that will also be used. When I would listen to other salespeople, kind of alluding back to what I was saying at the scrub sink when the doctor's washing his hands and getting prepared mentally to go in, that's not the best time to start talking or selling your product. Similarly, in my opinion, I never thought it was appropriate, unless asked, to really get into any of the other things that I have to offer other than give the support of the product that we were using, that I represented while I was there to help take care of that patient. And I would listen to several physicians over the years talk about the lack of emotional intelligence, using their phone in the room while there's a patient on the table. I've listened, I've witnessed people answering their own cell phone. First of all, it should be off. Taking a call in the middle of a procedure. I always looked at myself, Frank, as a guest into this physician's workplace, in his work environment, in his space. If he wanted to turn on the music, great. If he wanted to do certain things, that I was just there to help support my product. And there were so many people selling their products, like I said, taking calls, playing on their phone. I mean, just a whole disregard for having any kind of intelligence, period. And it would like highlight it, and you would hear physicians talk about those certain reps that would do those things and say, look, I really don't want to work with them because they just are inappropriate. And, I always said, it didn't matter what logo I had on my scrubs. I never wanted to be looked at as one of those types of folks that when they saw me coming down the hall, they're like, holy crap, we do not want to have a conversation with that person.
Well, to me, this conversation is frightening.
Yeah.
I envision a surgery as, this is the most important thing in my world. And I guess for most surgeons, it's like, well, it's Tuesday, I'm going on vacation. I mean, we tend to forget that, but it is just a normal world. But you did say something, and it's the old, carpenter's adage, measure twice, cut once. But how do you do that in a high pressure? I guess my question is, how do you stay composed when conversations become tense? Because there are those moments that, we live in a wonderful time. These surgeries, you've been through your own medical battles. We don't need to get into any of that, but it's just, it becomes tense. How did you stay composed in those moments?
Yeah, it wasn't always easy. I mean, there's nothing like getting yelled at because your product's malfunctioning or not doing something that, perhaps it should be doing. And, I mean, I I learned how to breathe a lot using breath work under my mask, just to stay composed and to, try to stay calm and, rely on the training that I had been given just from a product perspective. And, oftentimes, we've just dissected what could go wrong, and I felt always prepared. I'd study a lot before the procedures just to remind myself kind of, hey, here's the procedure we're doing, and here's kind of some of the things that can go wrong. I do a lot of preparation with the physicians in the little like waiting area to talk over kind of what his plan was, and just to make sure as we're having, the procedure as it's going on, that it's staying the course. I mean, there's nothing like having to speak up as a sales professional when the physician isn't doing something with your product that he should be or shouldn't be. That can be very tough. And that
Yeah.
takes a certain level of confidence to straighten up your spine and say, hey, Dr. Agin, listen, if you recall, here's how we talked about, doing X, Y, and Z. I mean, you have to be very delicate with your words, and you don't want to frighten any of the staff that they're doing something so inappropriately. You want to almost kind of say it, and uh, being in tune, and really just being observant and listening to the conversation that maybe he's having with the other person that he's working with, and kind of knowing where they're at with that, to then kind of observe and say, okay, I see what they're doing. They should be doing this next. But yeah, there have been several times where things didn't go right, or physician was having difficulty using the product itself, and having to really speak up and have that, just that, I guess, confidence to straighten up your spine and give the advice that you need to. But it's not easy. I mean, there was some tense moments. I've had some serious things happen with patients in the room, and but I always try to just really be mindful and really be the best resource that I possibly could. Never act like I know more than what I do. I was there really, again, to give the advice on my product. I did know it very well, or the products that I had represented over the years, and felt like I could be a valuable resource in that way. So that's why the reps exist. I mean, ultimately, kind of alluding back to what I was saying earlier, people want to know why the heck are you in the room? I mean, in most cases, in a lot of cases, depending on the complexity of the product, reps serve a good purpose when they're there for the right reasons and there to make sure that things go according to plan.
So you're obviously in the camp of that soft skills can actually be learned. I mean, otherwise there's, I don't want to say this conversation is pointless, but there's no point in talking about it if it's not a skill that can be developed.
Yeah, I don't think it's innate. I do think you can learn the skills. I do think you need to be intentional, like listening, for example. I mean, there's a lot of people that just love to, ramble and go on and talk. They just like to hear themselves, I think, sometimes. But I think the active listening part is one of the soft skills that I would say doesn't matter what you do for a living. Parenting, it doesn't matter. I mean, I think that is one of the best soft skills you can have.
Yeah, I agree. That was my follow-up question was, what was one behavioral habit people should improve immediately? And I think you answered my question before I even asked it. It's because that's closely aligned with reading the room, right? Just shutting up and just kind of knowing what's going on, and it's just knowing how to pivot, knowing how to adapt, knowing how to calm the situation down.
Yeah, and being able to, being agile, being able to adjust, right? Like with the human connection. I mean, AI is the big talk, but automation or AI can never replace human connection. It can't replace empathy. It can't replace value-based judgment. It can't replace some of these types of things that you need kind of in the moment, so to speak. I think those skills are so important. And when people start to depend too much on, automation or AI, you lose some of this critical thinking ability or problem solving ability. And I mean, I start to see that kind of towards the tail end of my career, working with kind of up and coming, sales professionals. They just didn't care, or they didn't have it. I don't know how to describe it. I think it was almost like a lost skill that I think people become too dependent on some of the resources that we do have, instead of using some of their own critical thinking abilities.
Yeah. Well, let's end with some rapid fire questions. I think I've had these rapid fire questions. I think we probably answered a lot of these. What's one soft skill every professional should improve?
Active listening, 100%.
Yeah. What's one communication mistake people make too often?
They, again, it kind of ties into the listening. They already have something, they hear something in a conversation, they automatically begin to prepare their answer.
Mm,
And sometimes, often, it's not even what the question was going to be, but there was something that triggered their response. And they already started to prepare that without really truly understanding what was going to be asked.
what's one networking habit that builds trust, in your opinion?
I think like following up. I think, we meet a lot of people while we're networking, and, have some good conversation. But, when I say, oh, Frank, I think I know someone that could potentially be of a resource to you. And, I go on and meet 20 other people in that night. Like, do I genuinely and authentically, from the connection that I've made with you, follow up like I say I was going to, and do the things that I say I was going to? I think, in my opinion, that's something that can really help you stand out in the networking world.
Yeah. What's last one? What's one small action listeners could take this week to improve professionally?
Just be intentional. Go into it thinking that you have two ears and one mouth, and there, that ratio it is. I really truly, and I mean, I've never been great at this early on in my career. It's taken me some time over the years to get better, because look, it's easy to do. I say something and you quickly go, "Ooh, I starting to formulate maybe something to say on that." And
Yeah.
I really like to take it all in. I try to be mindful and listen to someone's, entire thought, and then almost give myself a second or two to digest it before I then respond. And so I think, the to answer your question, Frank, it's just being intentional and being in the moment, and really just genuinely listening to what someone's saying, and then giving yourself a second to digest that and then respond. And I think just practicing that, you do find that you start to get better at that kind of process.
Yeah. Um, well, let's shift gears here. Build your own brand. I know you want to kind of fill us in on what's going on. I know you continue to work with people in career transition, but you and I have spoke about a lot of the work you're doing with car dealerships and kind of helping those people with their soft skills.
Yep.
It's a different product, but it's still a very technical product. So if you want to fill us in on what's going on, how people can help you, how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, yeah. So I love to meet new friends. LinkedIn is obviously, I think, the best way to do that. Facebook, Instagram, but LinkedIn tends to kind of be where I like to spend my time. Yeah, I mean, I've been in business now for a couple of years. I mean, candidly, I was trying to figure out my way for a little bit. I love helping people. I love, over the years, just watching people kind of fail to represent themselves, maybe to the best of their ability, just in my own encounters with people interviewing for jobs in areas that I was a part of. And so I feel like there's a lot of really intelligent people that just don't know how to tell their story at a high level. So I love working with people and helping them build the confidence and the credibility in how they tell their story to interview at a high level. Because at the end of the day, people will spend money on resumes, but that doesn't get anyone a job, in my opinion. It's, are you able to have, like we are now, a conversation where you connect with someone in 30, 40 minutes, whether that's Zoom, Teams, phone call, in person? What are you doing to be, unique and different and memorable and stand out and really break out of the sea of sameness? I think everybody approaches interviewing the same way. And, I've created a blueprint that disrupts that a little bit by being different and memorable. But I pivoted away, not 100%. I say I spend, to your point, probably 80%, 90% of my time now working with businesses, and helping sales teams, again, stand out, to be unique and different and memorable. I've worked with a funeral home that contacted me and said, look, we've lost our social graces. We need you to come in here and just have a discussion with our team about soft skills. Someone's dead in the room, that, is person's being laid out, and their families, they're having a very terrible day. and one of our employees is outside the door having a conversation with their family and laughing and telling jokes, and like that's inappropriate, and that's a soft skill of just awareness and emotional intelligence. And so we did an hour workshop on how to just be better.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of what I'm doing, but a lot of using personalized videos to help people be different, be memorable, using, finding ways to build a better customer experience. As you said, in the car world, I don't think that industry really has been modified or touched in any way as it relates to just the process in many, many years. And so some of the dealerships that I'm working with, we're looking to disrupt that, to make that, let's give them the Mercedes-Benz, Porsche, whatever it is, level of attention and experience, even though it may be, and not that there's anything wrong with these cars, but a Ford or, Chrysler or Jeep or whatever it may be. Why are we not giving them that? And it's fascinating that when you shift the mind a little bit to customer first and kind of approaching it like that, the sales come because you look more like a consultant than you do trying to just sell them the most expensive car on the lot. So we spend a lot of time digging into the psychology and looking at all aspects of someone's business and where we can improve it, so that anyone can sell a car. If you rammed into someone, Frank, and you needed a new car, you can go up to a dealership and they will sell you a car transactionally. But how do you leave that experience so wonderful that you come and tell your wife or your kid or your neighbor or someone that you work with, like, wow, they really rolled out the red carpet and they did these types of things to really make it that much more memorable. That's how you start to build longevity. And that's a lot of what we do.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate you once again for coming on and talking about an important topic. It plays into relationship building and networking, getting referrals.
For sure. Yeah, I appreciate you having me again. Always a pleasure. I know we speak a lot, but always a pleasure to speak with you.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connections. All rights reserved.